Who are you? Well, that is a great question to ask. And in this video, we'll be going over 4 very important topics about who you really are. And you'll want to stick around until the end, because we'll be uncovering the secrets of Swiss psychologist Dr. Carl Jung, and you'll see just how important and special you are as an individual. Let's start with the first topic, the ego. You may have heard this word before. Typically, ego is used to describe someone who is egotistical or full of themselves. But this actually isn't what an ego is. See, everyone has an ego. Having an ego is not a bad thing. It's just part of being a human. The actual definition of ego is, as Dr. Carl Jung describes it, the complex factor to which all conscious contents are related. It forms, as it were, the center of the field of consciousness. The ego is the subject of all personal acts of consciousness. So to put it simply, our ego is our perceived sense of self. It's the grand total of our life experience. Every time something we perceive as being good or bad has happened to us, it has formed what we call our ego. It's the way we behave when we meet someone new. We compose ourselves in the way that we want to present ourselves. That is the essence of what an ego is. It's the way we express our perceived sense of self. It's the behavior that we ourselves are conscious, or in other words, aware of. But this begs the question, if this is the behavior we are consciously aware of, what about unconscious or unknown behavior? Well, Jung describes the unconscious as the unknown inner world. It's the part of ourselves that we repress. We may dislike confrontational situations, or even be scared of certain aspects of our own behavior. These repressed thoughts and feelings get pushed further and further down into the inner world of the unconscious. This unconscious, or unknown, inner world is what Jung calls the shadow self. The shadow is composed of the aspects of ourselves that we are most frightened of, or the parts that we dislike the most. And this is the second topic on our way to figuring out who you truly are. But don't worry, the shadow is nothing to be afraid of. Allow me to explain. As I said before, everyone as an individual has a conscious and unconscious self. Aspects of us that we may not be so proud of that we hide from other people. The more aspects we try to hide and repress, the stronger our shadow becomes. And this may cause us to behave in ways that we don't want to. If you've ever lashed out at someone or done something you aren't proud of, this is your shadow expressing itself. So you may be asking the question, how can I stop my shadow from expressing itself? And the answer may surprise you, by integrating it into your conscious behavior. Carl Jung says this on the subject of the shadow. The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. To become conscious of it involves recognizing the dark aspects of the personality as present and real. This act is the essential condition for any kind of self-knowledge, and therefore, as a rule, meets with considerable resistance. To put it simply, we must become aware or conscious of as much of the dark aspects of ourselves as possible. This is what Jung calls integrating the shadow self. This process can be a difficult and arduous process, but I can tell you exactly how to do it, and it's not as difficult as it may seem. Jung states that closer examination of the dark characteristics reveals that they have an emotional nature, a kind of autonomy, and accordingly an obsessive, or better, possessive quality. Emotion, incidentally, is not an activity of the individual, but something that happens to him. And this concept is very important for later on in the video, so be sure to remember it. We need to view our shadow as having a literal mind of its own. It wants to express itself through us. Embracing the parts of ourselves that we aren't fond of is the best way to integrate the shadow. And I touched on this a little more in my last video on Buddhism, but ultimately, if your shadow is trying to express itself, treat that part of yourself with a smile and a nod. We may never be able to get rid of our impulses, so that is the best way to treat them. Just acknowledge their presence and give them a smile and a nod and move on. Now that you know how to integrate your shadow self into your conscious mind, this leads us to the third topic, the self. The self is the ultimate version of who you are. It's the successful integration of your conscious and unconscious self. This is what Jung calls individuation. It's when the choices you make benefit not only your conscious self, but your unconscious self too. You could think of the yin and yang symbol. You have the conscious and unconscious, but when you put them together, you get the whole. All of us on Earth seek to become whole, to become the happiest version of ourselves possible. We have to start by loving every part of ourselves, even the parts we may not be fond of, and embracing them no matter what. If we can't change these aspects of ourselves, they were meant to be there. Now let's get to the main reason of why you clicked on this video, to learn why you are special and why you are you. Oh, and you may want to hold on to your seats for this. Here's why. We are thoughts. Allow me to explain. Do you remember earlier in the video when the quote by Carl Jung mentioned that the dark characteristics of our unconscious reveals that they have an emotional nature, a kind of autonomy? Our thoughts should be viewed as autonomous things that interact with us and seek expression in the physical world. Here's another example. Before we were born, we were conceived by our parents, and you may think that we were first conceived in the womb. But this actually isn't the place where most of us were conceived. See, my parents had the idea to birth me, Yuan Dewey. I am just a physical expression of a thought that my parents once had. This very video you're watching right now was first conceived in my own head too. Everything that we see and experience in the physical world is an expression of thought. Or, in other words, an expression of self. We all have a pretty good idea of who we are, and that's what the self ultimately is, an idea of who we are. And we all wish to express ourselves in ways that have a lasting impact on the world. We all seek to express ourselves through time. Take Pink Floyd, for example. They are expressing a thought that they had through sound across the span of time. Or take Steve Jobs. He may be dead, but we still use his thought of an iPhone that he expressed before his death.
Calling it iPhone.
See, this is why you are so special. You have the ability to choose how you express yourself, and the way you express yourself has an impact on the world around you. This is the last and most important topic of the video. If you made it this far in the video, I encourage you to stick around to the end. See, you ultimately saw this video in your recommended and clicked. You chose to watch this video. Let's say that tonight you want to eat some McDonald's. You open up the DoorDash app, order a Big Mac, and have them deliver food straight to your doorstep. You can choose to bring things into your life, just like how you've chosen to bring this video into your life. Your thoughts aren't just things to be whisked away. Your thoughts seek expression through you yourself. But it's important to remember to express the best aspects of ourselves. Similar to Pink Floyd or Steve Jobs, you can have a huge effect on the world. That is why you are so special. The human species needs to work together to make the world a better place for us to live in. We all have the ability to choose how we express ourselves, so choose wisely. Choose what makes you happy. Because ultimately, the choice is all yours. Life is as easy or as hard as you choose to make it. You are special, and you can truly change the world. So choose to make the world a better and happier place. Because ultimately, the ability to choose what comes into the world is in your hands. And when you choose to ask the question, "Who am I will simply point back to you and say, there you are. This video was a very brief summary of a much larger book called Aion by Carl Jung. If you'd like to read it for yourself, a link will be in the description below. If you enjoyed my video and found it helpful or interesting, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel. I'm trying to create a community here on YouTube where we can encourage each other to be the best version of ourselves that we want to be. My goal is that if we all think positively and expand on our good ideas, we can help each other achieve things that we never thought we could do alone. And I've got plenty more videos coming in the future, and I have plenty of other videos similar to this one on my channel if you're interested. But I would absolutely love for you to subscribe and be a part of my community. If you have any suggestions for future videos or things I missed out in this video, please leave a comment below. And if there was anything I missed in this, I'll pin your comment to the top so everybody can see it. I think that's about it for this video. Thank you very much for watching if you made it all the way through, and I will see you again sometime soon. Thank you for watching. Goodbye. Best of wishes.